be fair, it looks a little bit more professional than the last time. You have a microphone and a white background, so it's always a good look, you know.
Oh, thank you for that. I still got my Kiss t-shirt still, mate. So, hey, yeah, thank you so much, mate. So, Mia is joining us. She's an undergraduate student, first year Bachelor of Communication, majoring in journalism and strategic communication, whatever that is, mate. So, so I thought, what better way to propel her first interview with a rock star like you, mate?
Well, I'm here to teach. If you're ready to learn, here we go.
So, hey, yeah, so 6 months ago, mate, I was on Triple M Albany. We spoke about the last single the first time. So what I noticed about that single is that it has that festival vibe to it, you know, um, and it is an ode to nostalgia. Whereas this single here, the Miracle Cure, it says that love conquers everything, right? So, but both single has that signature of Eskimo Joe. So, did it come naturally for you to manifest the sonic personification of this single?
I guess so. I mean, when we did the first time, I think it was, we'd gone through the what I call the Eskimo Joe lost years, where we'd been on a bit of a hiatus, and then we'd come back and we'd put out two songs in that time, and enjoyed it. But it really wasn't until leading up to the first time that we'd really gone back out and played to some live audiences proper again. And there is something tangible in that thing when you're in a room full of a whole lot of people where and that's how our music evolved in the first place. It started in our bedroom, and we started playing it in front of people, and then we were like, we'd do something on stage, and we'd be like, oh, that works. Let's put that into the next song, and so it evolved, and each time we got bigger as a band, the audiences got bigger, and the songs got bigger. We were always reacting to whatever was in front of us. And so by the time we got to the first time again, yeah, we just played this whole bunch of amazing summer festivals, and we were like, oh, that's right. People know who we are, and that sense of identity as a band. You get reminded, and you're like, okay, cool, that's who we are. So we did that, and for the first time out of all of those songs that we had written in those post kind of album years, with Eskies, we actually started to play the first time live, and the reaction we got from that song was really, really good. So fast forward to doing the song Miracle Cure, we'd finished a whole bunch of big summer festival shows, which is kind of how we, like I said, how we wrote the first time, talking about that sonic signature. It came out of that. But Miracle Cure was written backstage as we did this really big acoustic tour around the country. So after we had done all these big, rock and roll festivals, the three of us just headed out on the road playing all of these kind of country town halls and doing this 2-hour kind of storytelling show. And as we were backstage, just sitting on the couches with our acoustic guitars, I'd be like, oh, I've got a bit of an idea. And then we'd work on it a bit. And the next day we'd be like, oh, how about this? And we'd just keep building on it. And so by the time we'd finished that like 30 odd date tour, we pretty much had a song ready to go, and then did a few demos. And here we are putting it out, which is pretty exciting.
Cool. Mia?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the first time, because I was looking at the lyrics of Miracle Cure, and these lines like, I only feel it when you're running through my veins, give me just enough rope, a little intervention. They're kind of metaphors linked to addiction or self-destruction. And with the first time that came out, I think it was 2024, just the year before, it's almost like you're taking these rose-colored glasses off. And I was wondering about the choice behind those metaphors, and if you think there is any kind of similarity between addiction and love.
It's actually really interesting that you mentioned that, because I hadn't really put two and two together. That the first time was all about this kind of love through rose-colored glasses story, whereas this is it's a lot about I guess the similarities between addiction and love, but really using that metaphor to kind of talk about love in a way that it really, the song is about hope. So Miracle Cure is this idea that like hope is this like most powerful emotion that we have, and often the way that it works in with people is that we give that hope to someone else and we go, can you hold that and can you make sure that it's safe? And that's a really vulnerable thing to do. And a lot of the time, we're, I mean, maybe I'm giving too much away about myself, but a lot of the time we're kind of these self-destructive creatures. We're kind of like, we're set for a doomsday scenario at all points in time. And so, a lot of the time when we do give that hope away to someone and this great vulnerable moment, we have this expectation that we're going to blow it all up, that it's all going to end in tears. But luckily, so far, it hasn't in my life. I'm pretty happy. But yeah, I think that idea of the blood boiling and someone using drugs as an analogy for the rush that you get from love. It's probably a tried and true formula, but obviously it means something to me. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, interesting actually. That's a great question. Yeah, and the lyrics is very intense, right? I mean, you spoke about drowning, metaphorically speaking, being on the edge. Tell us about that particular moment where you felt like that, and tell us about that someone who ultimately became your miracle cure. And I believe there's only one right answer to that, mate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my wife became my miracle cure for sure. I mean, we always say, because we're both like complete weirdos, we like to boast to each other that we only feel normal when we're with each other. That's not to say we can't function out in the real world with other people. But as far as that kind of feeling and the essence of, where that line came from, it actually kind of, I do a lot of I'm a big believer in this kind of idea of the subconscious, flowing out, and then you kind of have to turn that into the storyline, because the subconscious, has everything that's happened to us, and it's always bubbling away in the background. And when that stuff comes out onto the page, it always makes for the best songs, I think, because it everything feels like you haven't looked at. It's like that whole waiting for the kettle to boil, waiting for that lightning strike moment of inspiration. If you do that, that can be fine in the back end of songwriting, but if it's the initial idea, you're looking at this idea like, what do we want to write about? That can feel a bit stinky as soon as you put it out there. So a lot of my ideas come from like voice memos that I've just, when an idea has popped into my head, I'm just like, so I think when we very first sat down, to do Miracle Cure, it actually came from a voice memo. And I don't know what I was feeling at that point in time, because one of the stupidest things I ever do is I don't name any of my voice memos. So it's just like, it just says the location of where I am, which is probably like most people in the world. But I definitely, I kind of like sung this version of the chorus into my phone. And I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but I remember when I played it to Joel, he was like, "Oh, that's cool. That's a cool idea." And then it all kind of grew out from there. So I think having that essence, of an idea that comes from a real place. I don't know what place I was in when I came up with that idea. I think is really important to good songwriting.
Beyond the lyrics, looking more into the inspiration, you just released the full clip for Miracle Cure. And in the past, you kind of used Fremantle as an inspiration for your song From the Sea. And you've just filmed the music video at the Old Customs Fremantle House. I was wondering what the significance behind the location choice was, and how like Australian culture kind of influences the sound and the image of the band.
I think, that's probably like a subject I probably would have shied away from when I was a bit younger, writing songs like From the Sea. I think when we wrote that record, we were in Fremantle for a long period of time. It's got a real, it's hard to explain, but Fremantle's got a tangible feeling to it. You guys from Perth, you know how it is. It's got a vibe. Some people love it or hate it, but I personally love living here because there is real tangible creativity to the place. But I think when I first was doing From the Sea, I was really inspired by telling these really ordinary stories about myself and my friends and lovers and that kind of stuff. And that's really where that came from. But, we made a decision in the really early days of Eskimo Joe to become like a Fremantle band. And that meant, owning the location that we're from. And so as far as filming, back to your question, what's the significance of filming it in the old customs house? And part of it is that, it's next door to my studio. So it's like, that looks like a great place to do a video clip. But no, it's a really cool space that we use for all kinds of stuff. I'm really lucky that Art Source, which is where my studio is, we're Studio 42, and the rest of the space is like 40 other visual artists all creating in this space. And then we've got this main gallery space in the middle where everyone puts on their art shows. And so I've done photo shoots in there, I've recorded in there. We just did a video clip in there. But as we were writing this song, we were like I said, we were going through all these country towns all over Australia, and we ended up, that kind of the vast Australian landscape just kind of seeped into the feeling behind this song. And my whole aesthetic that I was going for, from the songwriting to the video clip to the photo shoot that we ended up doing, was this idea of Australian Gothic. And what I mean by that is that, there's something really significant in the way that we are as Australians, because, there was a First Nations who lived in this place first, and then you had like prisoners and who became the citizens of this place. And when you have these situations like in America, like, what happened at the end of the Civil War, when that, the whole thing fell apart, something has to fill that vacuum. And, if you look at America, it was filled with like religious fanaticism and all of these, bizarre churches that popped up. In Australia, you have a similar thing. Like we had to fill this great vacuum, this divide between the First Nations people and this next generation of Australians who came along. And I think there's something really significant in our story in that. And so from everything from, the sound to this kind of like this semi kind of religious, lyric in the verses, to the look of the video clip, which was kind of like inspired by Picnic at Hanging Rock and Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. I just love this idea of Australian Gothic, and I'm still obsessed with it. I'm sure I managed to kind of, offload that straight onto my band members, and they were like, sure, sounds good to me. But I think I'll probably keep running with that with whatever, big solo project I do next, because I think there's a world to explore there.
Yeah, so you've actually performed in some of these great venues, like you have performed at the previously at the, I think, Real Summer Tour as well, Real Summer Tour, and as well as the West Australian Symphony Orchestra. Do you have like a specific venue or concerts that you would love to do it again?
Well, I mean, with the symphony orchestra shows, they're just mind-blowing. Anytime you get to play with the orchestra is wicked. It's just, you can't wipe the grin off your face as this 75-piece orchestra behind you as you're singing. But, so playing at the Perth Concert Hall with the orchestra was amazing. Doing that same concert at Kings Park was, just absolutely stunning. But, playing this Red Hot Summer Tour that we just finished, I mean, there's some of my most favorite shows we've played. And that's a lot to do with just because, Eskimo Joe is the three of us, but we have, session players who come out who play the records with us live. And one of those session players is a guy called Paul Keenan. He played with us all through the Black Fingernails and Songs of the City era, went off, had many, many children, came back again and is playing with us. But having him on drums, it's a vibe, And then we've got Timothy Nelson, who's an amazing, musician and songwriter in his own right, who plays with us on keyboard. So just the combination of people is great, because we really, every night, we go on stage and we make a joke. We're like, guys, don't mean to get you too excited, but this is going to be the greatest show we've ever played in our life. And we say that every day that we go on with this attitude that this is going to be the greatest show we've ever played. And you know what? It's cool. You get on there and you play in front of people and you give it your best. And, we just played to, sold out crowds on this Red Hot Summer Tour. And we're pretty competitive. We always want to be the best band on the day, but, in a healthy way. We're not sabotaging anyone's gear, but we get on there and treat it like sport. We want to be the winning team every time. And so, we just played at Soundwood Winery for the first time, and that was incredible. Like, what a great show. We had a ball.
Have you seen Fast and Furious Part 1?
Do you mean the one where they get these multi-million-dollar cars and steal some DVD players?
No,
Yeah.
I'm referring to, right? You know when Vin Diesel goes in those um quarter of a mile, he lives his life by quarter of a mile, right? In those 10
Yeah.
seconds, he feels free. Do you feel free like that on stage when you in front of 10,000 people? Or?
It's probably a bit more complex than whatever goes on in Vin Diesel's head. But the it's a knife edge, like if you're too, you can only relax on stage if you're really well rehearsed. And so everything has to be thought out. You have to prepare the best possible show. And then when you get on stage, you have to kind of forget that to a point. You can't be too well rehearsed, and you need to get to the point of well rehearsed that you don't, it's muscle memory. You don't think about it. But then if you don't think about it at all, you mess up, and the show falls to pieces. So you got to find this kind of knife edge, and I guess that's that place of freedom, and it sounds very restricted, but sometimes parameters are the most important thing to help us, be free, I think.
And speaking of live performance, next year is the 20th anniversary of the album, Black Fingernails Red Wine. So will there be a 20th anniversary? Will there be an album tour next year, like what we saw in 2022?
Yes, definitely. I mean, Black Females Red Wine was such a big album for us, and for a lot of people who got into us, a lot of people discovered us when that album came out. Like maybe we were pretty much indie kids up until that moment, and then we kind of crossed over to this bigger audience. So it's a really important record for us for many, many reasons. So, we've, like I said, we've just finished these Red Hot Summer shows. We've just put out a new song, but we'll probably save a bit of our energy until next year, where we'll do it. We'll do. I don't know exactly in what form it's going to take, but we'll do some big celebrations around that record for sure.
There you go, guys. You heard it first on Sheldon and Media, Mia, you've got a question about about basketball, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, so you've referred to these kind of live performances where it's just you, the band, and your acoustic guitars as Eskimo Joe. And I was wondering, releasing the new single, if there would be a reappearance of Eskimo Joe anytime in the near future.
Well, look, I think you might have stumbled onto a great marketing idea here. Maybe we could just do, like, as we go around the country, we'll just busk and see how we go. No, a Buskimo Joe is like when we put together the acoustic tour, we realized we only had like one gear with our Eskimo Joe acoustic thing, which was Buskimo Joe, which is literally like two acoustic guitars and a stomp box and me jumping around. So we had to kind of figure out all these different gears, like maybe three different gears that we could do to make a acoustic show interesting over 2 hours. But the funny thing is when we first started doing it, like I personally love just playing a song with an acoustic guitar, because I think it's the essence of the tune, and it also changes the way that people perceive that story. You can tell more of a long-winded story leading up to that song as well to make it land. So that's the kind of Buskimo Joe experience. I love it. I think my band members have grown to love it, but I've had to drag them there kicking and screaming.
Hey, Kav, mate. It's such a great honor to have a chat with you again, mate. Yeah, so hopefully we'll see you very soon. And if you do need a photographer, mate, for your tour, mate, let me know. I'll be there.
I'll let you know for sure. I mean, I have no doubt I'll see you in the front row anyway, but yeah.
As usual. Thank you so much.
As usual. All right. Thanks, guys. Legends. I'll see you later.
Bye.